Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm Nora Yolles-Young, and you're on The Experience. And today we have a guest that is so exciting for me to share with you, Mary Lee LaBay, and I'm going to read a little bit about her. She's been an inspiration to me, and she is a 5-time author and holds a PhD in behavioral psychology. And with her 30 plus years of experience, she is the creator and instructor of personal trainings in integrative hypnotherapy and past life regression. And she also is a practitioner and teacher of the wisdom of tarot, Western astrology, and Soulescence, principles of philosophy. And we're going to need to talk more about that. But without further ado, welcome, Mary Lee. Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me here. This is just such a pleasure.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you. And so while it's on my mind, tell us more about Soulescence.
Oh, okay. Well, Soulescence itself is a trademarked name that I created, and it has to do with the soul. And then when you use the suffix essence, it's like transcendence, that ence part, is the activity of taking care of your soul. So we were just talking a few minutes ago privately that, about the raising of consciousness for people. And so my Soulescence program and the teachings that I do have to do with correcting philosophy and trying to align as best we can with reality and truth. So
how beautiful. And how do you do that with hypnosis, or how do you offer that?
Well, they can be in workshops separately, but of course when I do hypnosis, when I'm working with hypnotherapy clients, I'm really more of a teacher. So I'm using hypnosis and people are in trance, but I'm very fully aware of basic philosophical tenets and, different pathways to identify people's values, how they're aligned with those values, when they're out of alignment, the action steps that they would gain to or that they would use to gain or keep those values, the difference between the sense of life and philosophy. And so all of these types of philosophical background allows me to work with the clients in a little different way and be more sensitive to where the origin of the issue lies.
Wow, I bet that is incredibly healing to a person, who's coming in for. Do you see people for very specific things, or do you see people across the board?
I do see people across the board. They come to me because of my spiritual background and my body of work in past life regression. So that's kind of the entry. Oftentimes, most people who see me are open to, I do an astrology chart for every client, and we do a little, I use that as kind of a map to know how to work with my client better, and maybe to look at opportunities or challenges that are coming up so that we can be prepared and have the person supported properly. But then we're using the hypnotherapy and NLP and past life and all those techniques. But in the background, I have that philosophical background where, because I can identify certain things, then I can help them to see that. So if I see that they're out of alignment with their own values, we can talk about that and address it. I know you are familiar with Bruce Lipton, and I know him, and he's phenomenal. I recommend his work to a lot of people. But there was another researcher and a study. Suzanne Segerstrom and Richard Miller did a 30-year study tracking people with the type of with stress, and what the conclusion of this research was, the nature of the stress that a person has is directly related to the nature of the disease or dysfunction that they will create later in life. And
Wow.
so a lot of what we're doing in hypnotherapy, we're kind of working backwards. They come in and they've got fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, unexplained pains, phobias, fears, all these things. And then we can trace it back to the original stressors. But then beyond that, there's a huge indication that those stressors have to do with being out of alignment with our values. So then comes in the whole philosophical end of that is, what are the values? So an example of that is, if I say it's important to me to eat properly and go to the gym and work out, be healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yet what I'm doing, so maybe that's, top on my values, not top, but somewhere up high, I want to be healthy. I want to have a long life.
That's how you're presenting yourself. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But over here, I'm snacking on
Twinkies.
Twinkies, right? Drinking Coca-Cola, smoking, or whatever that is. And so I'm out of alignment with that value. And that, it creates regrets and guilt and low self-esteem. I mean, it just starts having the ripple effect. And there's tons of examples of that. It doesn't have to just be that one, but nobody that I know of, including myself, is perfectly aligned with their hierarchy of values. And so, we're going to have a few, and hopefully they're the kind of slight, but when people come in, anyway,
I know what you mean. And I think it's really cool. People will express how they perceive themselves, right? They'll convey that. And when you're listening for congruence in who they are, and then you get them into trance and they're talking about, the origin of where their issues may have emerged, or to be grossly oversimplifying, then it's really interesting. It's like, oh, this is really important to you, but then I'm hearing this. To me, hearing is a really big thing. A lot of people will see hearing. I hear in the vibration, and it's just so interesting. And I think too, in the work, what's so beautiful about it is there's no blame. It's like, guess what? You get to actually sync up. Like, maybe you don't want to be so hard on yourself about diet. Maybe a really strict diet isn't your thing. Like, maybe you want to give yourself some flexibility.
Right. Maybe happiness.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of joy in there.
Yeah, exactly. Having some fun, but right. And, but being very clear on that. It's one of the exercises that I give to my clients, the values exercise, and they create that as part of, and the work that we do when they enter into one of my programs, so that it really opens up a dialogue as well. So in fact, even in my teachings, when I'm giving the professional training, I add a lot of those philosophical and psychological that framework into what I teach my students, so that they can start to use that in their practices as well.
How beautiful. And
Yeah.
Mary Lee, how did you get into this work? You've been doing it a while, and you've been very prolific in creating beautifully written books about your work and educating people. When did you start? What got you into it?
Well, lifetimes.
Right. Right, I know. It's so hard to start to pinpoint.
Right. What's the scope of this conversation? So lifetimes of spiritual work. I've done, dozens and dozens and dozens of my past lives, and there is a theme, right? A theme there of raising consciousness, of trying to make a difference in the world in that regard. And so coming into this lifetime, as I look back, I can see a lot of sensitivities that I had. But I started with astrology and tarot when I was 16.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and it was in the late 60s.
Uh-huh.
So the hippie movement, and there weren't a lot of books or materials available for the interests that I had. Nobody was going to become a professional astrologer or anything, not in middle America, not in like normal society. And so it was very hard to get the education or get support, but I plowed through it. Later, I mean, it's kind of a convoluted way, but I just kept opening doors. You know, it was like, oh, I'm interested in that. And I would follow it and I would open the door and walk through. Just kind of boldly following those things that were interesting to me. And so then it was tarot and astrology. And then later, you know, I was investigating Eastern religions and, you know, just trying to figure it out, as many people do in their late teens. They're trying to figure out, what is this world all about and what do I believe and what is my philosophy? Then in my mid-30s, I started working with a teacher and learned received my first past life regression, which I thought I had, you know, really hit the jackpot. I thought that had been a goal of mine for, 15 years, was to actually start connecting with my past lives. So he gave me a past life, but then eventually I learned how to do that. So I was giving past lives to my friends, past life regressions. And I had a metaphysical bookstore. I was doing psychic readings, astrology, and tarot.
Oh,
wow. What do I call it? Sponsoring psychic fairs, doing different things, just kind of playing with this whole magical world that I love, right? And then at one point, a lot of people were asking for the past lives, and it was really kind of a sightseeing tour where you just go back. What did you do? What was that like? Who were you? What was the era? Where in the world were you? That sort of thing. And then I took the hypnotherapy training in the late 90s, and my world opened up. So then I had all these other tools. And then I started figuring out how to apply those tools to the past life regression. In the meantime, I've been doing this, kind of Celtic shamanistic, druidic kind of studies where, we're studying life. But anyway, so
that's so cool. Wait, you have to go back there at some point too. That is so cool.
Well, because that's important in the way that I address past lives, because the knowledge and the breadth of that topic is far beyond what you're going to find out there. Nobody's writing about this stuff, mm-hmm. about what we're learning mm-hmm. now about that. But anyway, so anyway, I applied the techniques of hypnotherapy, NLP, all of that into the past life. So now we can go into the past life experience. And if there was a traumatic experience there, we can actually do the therapy on that past life person and change that. And then when it changes in that past life, that radiates out through, a lot of lifetimes, past and future, including this one.
Yeah, right? It changes reality itself.
It does. It has that ripple effect. Just like if I do my healing here, that's going to ripple out into the past and into the future.
Yeah.
And there's a big world out there that people are just, I don't think, really aware of. And we know as we look around, they're not accessing it. They're not. We started to talk about that earlier. I see our soul, your soul, my soul, as a large diamond with an infinite number of facets. Okay,
so beautiful of an image.
Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. That's my soul, and that's yours too. So we were created with this infinite number of facets, we know that all time is now, right? Physicists are demonstrating that time is sitting out there in a static situation. I like to liken it like a film strip. You look at the film strip, and each cell is just, a static image, right?
Right.
But when you move it quickly, it looks like things are moving. The same thing with time. Time is sitting there, but it's our consciousness that is moving us through it. And
Oh, what a cool way to think about it.
yeah, it's our consciousness time is a dimension. So just like space is a dimension, and or length, let's say length is a dimension, and we can travel along length, we can travel along time, and that's why the movie looks like it's moving, right?
Yes.
But all of that is sitting there in this diamond. All of my experiences, all of my lifetimes are just sitting there, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm on one little facet. And if we're a one-lifer, it looks, to us, we are living our life as though this is everything. But we are completely oblivious to the rest of this diamond that, we've had, we've been executed, we've murdered people, we have fallen in love, a gazillion times. We've had the best of lives, we've had the worst of lives, and then we have the littlest thing happen here. I broke my fingernail and my world is falling apart, right? Because I'm, if I'm unaware that, I charged in battle against the Romans, or, and had my legs cut off or whatever. I mean, these extraordinary experiences that we've had, it would totally change the amount of drama that we're thinking that we have here.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And yes. Yes.
Oh. All we have to do is and of course, looking at those past lives, as we look at those facets, they're going to give us clues as to our purpose. And those facets, that purpose, to be in integrity, we would be in integrity with all of those. So our purpose is not just this lifetime, kind of the job that you have or this family that you're raising. It's a purpose that is going to span all of those facets. And yes. So the more we look at those facets and take a look at what those are and what they mean, and the purpose and the direction. Purpose is a direction. It's not a dimension, but it is a direction that we travel, making sure all those facets are lined up and traveling in the same direction, right?
Oh, I love that. I love it. I've never heard anyone explain it quite in that way and so succinctly. So I appreciate that. And I think that's going to be really informative to the audience. And so digging in a little deeper, do you have lifetimes that you have learned about or remembered that are informative to your life now that you really draw on? Are there specific ones?
Considerably, yes.
Yeah, would you mind sharing?
Well, my goal is to have them all lined up, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I just took a trip 2 years ago to Ireland, and all we did was past life regression in several different cities, locations, stone circles, that sort of thing. And
wow, it sounds magical. Really magical.
Absolutely magical. And there was a lot of energy being done so that it was really easy to remember, like the veil was pierced. So, and then we did this again in Tucson, another group, sort of the same group, but we did it, another one around the sites in Tucson with the veil pierced. And, wow. And I said that so that, it's, the site is there. And I would say the thread is exactly what I'm doing now, is trying to, raise the consciousness, awareness, helping people to organize and live out their best purpose, their best version of themselves. So I've done that as a teacher, of course. I've done it as a druid in many lifetimes, in the Celtic lifetimes, as a druid. I've done it, as a parent. I remember one lifetime where I was delivering a child and I died in the midst of it, and I just left the body. So that didn't get to be developed quite as much. I ran brothels, and some people would say, well, that seems like it's a counterpoint to the druid life, right? And I was a bishop in the Catholic Church during the Inquisition, but I was also on the other side of that. I was also, in another lifetime, I was one of the tortured, but in another lifetime, I was a bishop. And so, my questions, and I'm sure
it's only fair, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not even karma.
No, I just teased a joke.
I know. Well, karma is a little different than that, but
we can talk about that too.
I know we have so many. I could talk endlessly about all these things that I've learned. But the thread between that is, was the same. So even as the bishop, which was a horrible lifetime to have to recognize, and we're all going to have dark lifetimes that we really regret. But it was extraordinarily important for me to take a look at that. But even so, in that lifetime, I thought I was doing the best for consciousness and mankind. My intention was good. And so, intentions are not always as great as they're made to be.
I want to
pause you. At least the intention was there, right?
Sure. And I want to pause on that a little bit, because I've had similar experiences in my own past life work, internal work. And I think that can be an incredibly healing experience, to have the perspective of really the arch nemesis, really, like to have the memory and to have seen through the eyes and experienced the life of a person who, by outward accounts or by our own lifetime currently, we would judge that lifetime negatively. And to actually be in that body, be in that lifetime, thinking the thoughts that the person perpetuating whatever it is perpetuated, crimes against humanity or whatever, to have that awareness is such wisdom,
And it gives you compassion for people who are making mistakes. Yeah, that's a tough one, that particular lifetime. It was interesting with the brothel lifetime, because we were staying in a bed and breakfast, and I woke up early in the morning, and I realized I used to own this place. It was a bed and breakfast. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, and I was looking at, annexes that they had added on to the building to make it bigger and everything. It was smaller, and I was seeing all the differences. And then it dawned on me, I ran it as a brothel.
Wow. So it just dropped in your waking state.
Yeah, I think I had been processing it overnight. And so when I woke up, all of that realization from the astral was there for me. But what was interesting is I thought, well, that's interesting. How does that fit in with being a druid and a bishop and, freedom fighters and all these other different things? And what happened was, in that small town, because me and my girls, that operation was outside the limits of morality for the town people, and outside the city limits, right? I was actually able to be kind of the point person between, like the political factors, or between the businessmen and the politics, or the pirates, the criminals. And so a lot of messages were passed through me so that they could communicate, because they couldn't maybe communicate directly. Treaties were made. I was helping,
They could be
get
signed there in your home, in your space, right? Like you were a neutral zone.
right. And we were providing energy,
Yeah.
providing energy for, you know, people. Sex is energy, right?
And it's healing. I mean, holding space for people who are having, I mean, lifetimes were so much more difficult in those
Well,
days without the modern conveniences that we have now.
exactly. And so one of the girls that was, or one of the ladies that was also on the trip with us, she came up and she said, you know, I remember this place too. And she said, I was like a, maybe even a preteen, like maybe 13 or about 13, 14, that old. And she said, somebody got me pregnant and I was banished from my family. I was shunned in the town. I had no future, and I went out into the water and tried to kill myself. And somebody rescued me. I was trying to drown myself because I was so hopeless. And she
Sure.
said, somebody rescued me, and they brought me to you because they knew that you would not judge her for that. And she
Wow.
said, you raised me, you fed me. And she said, I never worked as a girl in your establishment, but I
Wow.
cleaned and I cooked and I helped support you in exchange for my room and board. And I grew up and I raised my child and I had a real life because of you. And I thought, there you go, you know?
Yeah, there it is. How
So there it was.
beautiful.
I saved a life, and I was able to do all this negotiations because of the nefarious business that I was in. That was useful, actually. So I thought, well, yay, you know, that's cool.
Yeah, and what a powerful role as a woman in a lifetime where women didn't have a lot of power.
Exactly, exactly.
Are you
So,
still friends with this woman?
oh yeah,
How cool.
oh yeah. I mean, in this lifetime, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're friends, and some of the girls that worked for me there they're friends.
Oh, that
They
is so
remember,
beautiful. Oh,
you know. But and then I remember being at Culloden. I went to Scotland on that same trip, and I was on the battlefield of Culloden, and you know, it was so moving. If you've watched Outlander, you
oh yeah.
it's so moving because you can go there, you know, where the bloody fields were, and it was such a slaughter. And then I realized in that lifetime I was a man, and I did not fight, but I had friends on both sides, and I was part of a group of people that were just working really hard to get a treaty to avoid that fight. I mean, we worked so hard. Because it was like I love people on both sides of this argument, and I don't want anybody killed, and we're just really working for that treaty, and it didn't happen.
Oh,
The
how heartbreaking. So that's English and the Scottish?
Not Scottish. Well, the
Yeah.
other Ireland, Scotland. I have a lot of lifetimes in England, but I've had lifetimes in. I mean, I've been every color, every every religion.
I think we all probably have.
Probably. I mean, it's more fun to experience all of that. It's, you know, the whole idea of the reincarnating is to get broader experiences. And that's why it's okay to have the negative experiences or the painful experiences, is because we need that also. We need that as part of our growth. Um, I mean, we don't want it all the time. And, you know, certainly we're striving to make our lives better and to be more productive in the world. But
And we're infinite, so it's not like there's a shortage of time.
right,
Time.
there's plenty of time for all of those things. Yeah, so
That's
it's
incredible. So,
yeah.
so I have so many questions that I want to ask you, but keeping with the past life theme about, you experiencing your past lives, do you fantasize about past or future lives that you'd like to live?
Yes, I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I do keep reminding myself of things that I want to be cautious of as I'm choosing the next one. It's like, I don't want to go there and I don't want to do that. So, you know, trying to really remind myself of some important things so that when I'm making those choices, um, that I'm, just remembering.
So are you referring to selection of lifetimes before entering? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even though in some ways there's a lot of givens already, there's only so many possibilities of me incarnating into, because we've got that diamond, and all time is there, and it's those things have happened. But within that, I have kind of an infinite number of possibilities of who I could be or what role I could play. And then within that larger set of possibilities, I have a smaller set of what would really be the probabilities.
Mm.
So, I'm not going to go into a lifetime and, be a heroic warrior. It's not in my nature. I'm not that. And
Mm.
I think we you know, need to choose lifetimes that are expressing what our purpose is and who we really are. So if I went into a body in a lifetime where, um, you know, fostering me or raising me as a heroic warrior, I would probably fail at it. It would be like I would go AWOL.
Like, I'm not going to do it. And what aspect of it is the actual warriorness, the fighting, the violent component? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so. That's just not my nature. I would,
Mhm.
I can negotiate the treaties. I could do that.
Right. I mean, and clearly you've done that before.
And negotiating treaties and teaching is all kind of the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's trying to get people to see a different perspective. So hypnotherapy, coming back to your original question, so hypnotherapy is just another extension of that, because I
Yeah,
can help people to see a bigger perspective and to change their mind about things that are not working for them.
absolutely. So what kind of a lifetime lights your fire? What piques your interest?
In the future,
Yeah.
magical.
Ooh.
Have to be continuing with the work that I'm doing now, um, this type of work. So
Uh-huh.
whether it's astrology or um, taking a look, psychic sight, astrology, tinkering with perspectives, that sort of thing. It's just that when I see the future, when I see some of the stuff in the future, it is fairly bleak, and so I kind of don't want to go there. It's I don't know. So a
Well, we
lot of
don't have to go there.
yeah, we don't have to go there right now. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that there's some really beautiful lifetimes out there, but even if you think about it, even some of the past lives have been really tough. If
Hmm.
you think about, I remember moving west during the Great Rush across
The
the
gold rush.
plains, and and being Native American in many lifetimes, and having the white cavalry come, and I mean, there's always strife and there's always some difficult times. So it's kind of hard to take a look at that.
Mm.
But it's
Hmm.
hard, it's hard to look at the past ones too, because there's always challenges.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I think part of the deliciousness of life is how we get through those challenging times, you know.
That's what
Um,
builds our self-esteem.
yeah.
That's what makes us stronger. I use the analogy of, if I want to have a strong body, do I want to just send somebody else to the gym? So if you tell me my past life for me, people get that reading, and it's like, well, then you're just asking the other person to exercise their muscles, not you, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the same thing with facing challenges. If I have somebody else always fighting my fights, or if I shy away and just always back off of any of my challenges because I'd rather have my life be completely comfortable and safe, then I'm not going to grow, and I'm not going to be exercising those muscles, and I'm not going to be strengthening.
Well, and I think over time we can try that out lifetime after lifetime, but at a certain point it's going to dawn on us, maybe I need to get my hands dirty and start rolling up my sleeves and participating in this experience, you know?
Exactly. Jump in the game.
Yeah. Now, do you, in your experience, is it your understanding that people choose to come in here and it is something that they desire as souls? Or I've you all,
Not all the time.
so
No.
talk a little bit about that, because I
Yeah.
think people like to hear about that.
Yeah, because there is a belief out there that when you're getting ready to come into a lifetime, that you're sitting with a council and they're giving you all your best options, and it's just this beautiful planning, like you're planning to go to college or something.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's not consistent like that. I mean, that may occur
Uh-huh.
sometimes somewhere. And if you can attract really good guides that have some sight, maybe you'll get some good advice. But it's just like in this lifetime, everybody does not have the same lifetime. We don't have the same experiences. We don't have the same family dynamics or the length of education. Everything is different for everybody, even from lifetime to lifetime. What I have in, the experiences I have this lifetime are not like next lifetime. So that the time between life is going to be different every time. And so sometimes we have a choice. Maybe we can pick different sets of parents, or not incarnate or incarnate. Sometimes we might have a little bit of advice, but it's only going to be as good as the sight that you have. Can you really, really take a look at who they are and what it's going to be like after you're born? Because situations can also change. I have a good example of that.
Oh,
And
please share it.
you want that example?
Yeah,
Well, I had a
sure.
client come to me, and she said, I must have had terrible, terrible karma, because I was put into this lifetime, and my parents, literally, they were abusive and like torture um, for her whole life. She said, she was taking it on as though it was karma, and that she had been assigned that as her punishment. And as we got into the regression and the time between lives, she realized that she had a soul connection with these two people, and she loved them dearly, but they were together and they were fighting and they were very abusive to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in her case, she decided that altruistically, she would come and teach them love. She said, when I become their child, they're going to be so in love with me that they're just going to stop all of this fighting and abuse, right?
Oh,
Well,
wow.
instead of doing it to each other, they did it to her.
Oh.
So both just pointed this abuse at her. And so there she was. She had a good intention,
Mm-hmm.
and but no sight in
Yeah.
what would really happen when you have two people that can't deal with each other and are emotional and abusive like that. You add a baby. I mean, even the most stable relationships, when you add a baby, is really, really hard if you've had a child.
Wow.
So in her case, that her plan didn't work, and she had to go through this life with all this abuse. It was terrible.
So was there some relief in the exploration of her choice, her soul choice, her spirit choice? You make a distinction between spirit and soul. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe we should just explain that, because I think that's important too for people to understand that there are different interpretations out there.
right, right. And so soul is your whole being, your whole diamond.
Essence.
And yes, and then the spirit is just that part of you that has come into the body.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so we are, completely our soul, and between lifetimes, we are that soul. Although we still don't, we're not omniscient, and we don't know about all those other lifetimes just because we're between lives. And maybe to finish that conversation, we are, when we're choosing lives, we have the opportunity to choose. Let's say that we have the opportunity to choose, just like you have the opportunity to choose whatever subject you're going to study in college. You have the opportunity to choose what husband you marry. I mean, we have a lot of choices, right? Everybody has a choice to incarnate. But how do you make your choices? And so some people are going to make a choice based on their obsessions or addictions. So maybe they're addicted to drugs when they die and they've never gotten over that. They're probably going to be searching out the next fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they're, you know, so whatever
They
your
made a decision after they passed that never again, and so that's going to direct them in their choice of the next lifetime.
it could be,
Yeah.
yeah, if we can hold on to that thought.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, whatever is in their sense of life is going to be dictating a lot of that. That's why it's important to know your purpose, to be on that path with your purpose, and to hold on to that
Mm-hmm.
lifetime, so that you know that you know, even though this lifetime over here looks really great, I could be wealthy and I could have everything taken care of, you know, I never have a worry in my life. But if your purpose is to raise consciousness, maybe you'd better choose this other life. I mean, you could maybe do it that way too, but maybe there's a lifetime where you could have more success in accomplishing your purpose. And, you know, for me, being born into a lifetime where um, there's so many restrictions, you know, intense poverty, there's nothing there. I I don't think hopefully I don't want to make those choices, but
Yeah.
I don't think that I could flourish in my purpose as strongly as I can from a different perspective. And so between those lifetimes, there's just so many factors that, and some people get are out between lifetimes, and it's quite disorienting because there's no up and down, there's no direction, there's no thing, there's nothing physical. It's just energy and light and patterns and entities and spirits and ghosts and all of that. And some people just, they don't know how to handle it, and they just pick the first available body. It's just like, whoa,
They
there's,
just jump back in.
I'm going, yep, I'm going for that one. And it could be a mistake. It could work out, but um, you know, so every situation is different. And then
So fascinating.
it's important that you're very conscious and deliberate, and have developed some techniques and talent for staying conscious between those lifetimes, um, so that you're not just falling into the first available body, you know, because that kind of happens too. It's just like, okay.
Well, and how cool is that to consider having techniques not only within the physical reality that we're experiencing in the now moment, but also after we've passed from this realm. And so do you have some things that you like to do when you've passed?
Um, so, well, I'm not sure if I understand the question, like what we need.
Techniques to keep focused in spirit.
Oh,
Yeah, in
yeah,
this, yeah.
yeah. So I actually taught a class. It's available on my website as a like a download.
Oh,
Um,
cool. And I want that to make sure we share that before we finish up today.
it's called How to Prepare, or Preparing for the Afterlife,
Oh,
right?
cool.
And so
Love
I
it.
had this workshop, and I had a whiteboard, and we started throwing out there, what, you know, if you were a good Boy Scout and you had your pack on, you know, as you died, right? You had everything packed that you would need in order to have a really good experience between lifetimes. What do you need? And that whiteboard was absolutely filled. You know,
How
it just
cool.
writing in the edges and everything. Well, you're going to need to have psychic sense, you know, some clairvoyance, because you're going to have to be able to see what it is that's out there. Remember, you won't have your physical eyes. So you're going to
Right.
have to be able to see without eyes. You're going to have to be able to hear without ears. So working on your auditory skills. You're going to have your values in place for sure. Know your purpose. also the clairsentience.
Mhm.
What is it you're feeling? What does it mean?
Emotions, meaning. Mhm.
And then some good allies, like developing relationships with spirits who can foster you when you're between lifetimes. Some allies who could be there for you. Um, what else? Um, yeah, some good allies. But
Yeah, it sounds like life too.
right, exactly. And yeah, just a sense of who you are, your values, your purpose. I can't remember the whole list now, but we really came up with a lot of things. But
How
if
neat.
you if you practiced astral projecting, if you astral project a lot, then that would prepare you also, because when you're in the astral is pretty much the same as when you're dead. The only
What's
difference
that? What's that?
is,
What that's like? Yeah.
yeah, the only difference between a dead person and an astral projected person is
The
uh,
cord's disconnected.
yeah, they call the silver thread or
Yeah.
whatever. It's your etheric body. So
Uh-huh.
when the etheric body is also detached from the physical body, then that person is dead. So when you're in the astral and you're floating around, is that person a dead person like a ghost? Or is it somebody else who's astral projected? You can tell by the etheric body.
How neat. Do you astral project?
You do. Not
I've
as much as
not been so good at it yet. Not yet.
not yet. Yeah, I mean, because it's a lot like falling asleep, but you have to stay focus, you have to keep your conscious awareness on what you're doing. But we all astral project at night. When we're sleeping, we all go out in the astral.
Yeah,
So
I've recently set an intention to have more awareness of that.
yes, yeah, it's fun. And I do remote viewing too. I'm not 100% successful, but I've taken some training in it. And
Oh, it's fun. I love remote viewing also.
yeah, yeah, it's fun.
Well, awesome. There's so much more to talk about, and we're going to need to start closing it up. But I wanted to share with the audience, if that's okay, a quote that I love from your book. And this is the book. This is for, so people, it's reversed. What it says is Past Life Regression, a guide for practitioners. And this is a lovely book. And in the epilogue on page 137, this is what it says. There's just a paragraph here that I want to, or a couple paragraphs. Your soul's quest for self-discovery and enlightenment is the driving force underlying your behaviors, actions, reactions, emotions, and pursuits. It's the most delightful and fascinating journey in which you will ever participate. Be the hero of your own saga. Meet the challenge. Participate fully in depths and heights of this physical experience to bring home your own brass ring, your personal holy grail, knowledge of your true self. Oh, Mary Lee, so
Yeah,
good.
yes. That's
How is
funny.
it to hear your own stuff read back to you?
Like I was in a particular poetic mood that day, I guess.
Well, it's beautiful and very instructive. So um, clearly Mary Lee is going to need to come back on the show. And I encourage all of you who are watching to please, if you have questions, put them in the, in the comments, and Mary Lee and I can plan another interview where she can directly answer. She's got the experience to answer these questions that you may have, especially practitioners, but even if you're just getting started having a personal exploration of past lives and any of the realms that she participates in, or connect with her through her website. And go ahead and share your website with us. I should have written it down, but I didn't. I want to
Well,
make
it's just
sure
my name, so MaryLeeLaBay.com.
that's easy.
Yeah, MaryLeeLaBay.com. And they can also email me at MaryLee@MaryLeeLaBay.com. But I'm sure there's a link there on the website as well.
And
But I
I'll
would,
be sure to put that. I'm sorry.
no,
Go ahead.
No, I just said I would love to hear from people. And I have trainings and products and everything. So yeah, have fun looking around.
Yeah, she covers this work very extensively. And when in my training, we read your book. Oh, now I'm spacing out
Hypnotherapy, client-centered approach.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. So the hypnotherapy
For our
training.
text. So it is really awesome for me to have this time to interview you and learn more and share that with the world. It's such powerful, important work. And I'm going to have all of this information in the description box below. So please peruse, connect with Mary Lee LaBay if you have that calling to do so. And just continue on your curiosity search. And if you need to connect with me, NoraYolles-Young.com, or write a question in the comment box, and I'm there for you. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us today. And Mary Lee, it was an honor to have you.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Wonderful. All right. Until next time, we're going to have Cynthia Sue Larson on. All righty. Take care.